Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
We're back with our Conversation Nation panel, Crystal, Jason, and Seema. Let's go on and talk about Serena Williams. She's slamming the head of the Russian Tennis Federation for what she says are insensitive, sexist, and racist remarks. The chief appeared on a Russian talk show and called Serena and her sister Venus the, quote, Williams brothers, and said the sisters were, quote, scary to look at. He issued an apology saying it was a small joke and was suspended by the Women's Tennis Association for a year and fined $25,000. Serena responded last night.
I thought his comments were very insensitive. I thought they were extremely sexist as well as racist at the same time, and I thought they were, in a way, bullying. I've done the best that I could do, and that's all I could say. So I just wasn't very happy with his comments, and I think a lot of people weren't happy as well. But the WTA and the USTA, they did a wonderful job of, making sure that you at this day of age in 2014, is someone with his power. It's really unacceptable.
Crystal?
I mean, I was shocked that, I guess I shouldn't be, but someone as incredible and athletic and at the top of her game as Serena Williams still has to face such stupid, sexist, obnoxious remarks. So I'm glad that they went forward immediately and suspended him. Serena seems satisfied with that result, so I guess that punishment is enough. But I just can't believe that someone at the top of their game like this still faces such direct attacks.
Jason?
I'm telling you, first off, before we even get to the racism and sexism, it's bad business. Okay, she's the #1 women's draw on the planet.
That's true.
You shouldn't be insulting your #1 draw anywhere on the planet. That's the problem number one. Second thing is, you got to look at this in the context. Russia has a lot of problems with racism in sports. They've had things with their football teams, people throwing bananas on the field. So when you put it in that context, this is a larger problem. They need to clean this up before they have any more tennis tournaments, and certainly when they get the World Cup in 2018.
Seema.
All right. Is everybody ready? I don't think it was sexist. I'm sorry.
You don't think it was sexist?
No,
not
it's not.
Sexist?
And here is why. The comment is derogatory, calling them to be men. Fine. If the comment was, Serena doesn't deserve to make as much money as Federer, that is sexist. But saying that she looks like a man isn't necessarily as sexism is defined.
Okay.
There's nothing about racism here. I mean, come on. We cannot just throw race and bullying into this just to be gratuitous.
Calling black women masculine,
Scary.
questioning their sexuality, questioning their womanhood, that is at the core
And the
of
way they
racism.
look. What were they talking
And the way that they
But it's
look.
not
It has
racist.
nothing to do with how she
racist?
plays. I think it's incredibly racist. And I think it's bad business.
There was
It's
not
both.
a word about race.
I'm going to have to
Not
go.
yet,
We're
bro.
going to have to
We're not ready.
hold this until after the show. Crystal Ball, Jason Johnson, C. Meyer, thank you for your time.
Context of White Supremacy. Justice, Gus T Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Friday, October 24th, 2014. So I have been told. This is program number 2 of the day on the counter-racist grind. Invest if you think the program is constructive. Racism-notes.blogspot.com. Racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal is in the top right corner. Listener-supported counter-racist radio. If you are not comfortable with PayPal, drop me an email and we can get you a mailing address if you would like to support, invest in the cows. Thanks to all the folks who have invested and kept us on the air for almost 6 years. I hope we have been worthy of your time and energy. Dr. Rasayan is texting me as we speak. Shout to Dr. Rasayan. At any rate, we are finishing up Mr. Richard Williams, Black and White, The Way I See It. Have really enjoyed the text. I got feedback that a lot of the listeners have enjoyed it as well. Even heard from some black children have been listening to the book, and they have even enjoyed it. I heard from a black child who asked permission if they could get this book because they have been enjoying it so much. Love to hear that. And I was even thinking as we were wrapping up, this is our last session. We'll be all done today. I was thinking that this would be a good book that you could get children to read. I think particularly for black females, I think this would be a good book for them to read. He has just lots of great things to say about his daughters and his mom and his ex-wife. I think it would benefit them potentially to hear some of the things that he has to say. Certainly that's something we can discuss today since we're wrapping the book up. We are picking up chapter 22. We did not finish from last week the infamous incident at Indian Wells. That's what we will be picking up at this week. We did not finish the chapter. Again, I can't give you exact page number, so, just kind of look in chapter 22. It should be right after, I think, the statement that he was reading from suspected racist in the paper about, why don't you show us some anger? Why don't you show us some conviction if you're really upset and this, is really not being rigged by your Negro mastermind father? That's the part where we will be picking up at this week, right after he finishes quoting, and then he gives his verbal retort, if you will. Very timely this week. I almost feel like since they're always talking badly about Serena Williams, remember the Carolyn Wozniak incident from a few years back where she was imitating her, and then I think a guy had done it before. I feel like it's always somebody making some sort of nasty comments about Serena and Venus Williams or their dad or their mom. But the incident where the racist suspect in Russia said it's the Williams brothers, and I think that he went on in another statement to say that they're frightening. In another statement and talking about them, fitting that we are wrapping up the book on the section dealing with Indian Wells, no less, in the middle of this crisis. And I was so proud that Serena responded and said that she thought his comments were sexist and racist. I thought that was fantastic. That has been requoted, and thus far, everyone that I have heard speak about this incident, you heard the audio at the beginning, the good Reverend Al Sharpton, where everyone agreed. Everyone else that I've heard has agreed, and good to see that this white person was punished, even though I think they could have hit him with a harder fine. $25,000 is probably chump change for this guy, but quite fitting that that's where we are in 2014. Where people always say that I can't believe it's 2014. This is what it is, but it's lovely. This is where we are at finishing this book. That's what's going down. Just wonderful timing as usual here at the Context of White Supremacy. So if folks want to weave that into the discussion that we have today as we wrap things up, feel free. Very much looking forward to getting our final thoughts before we move on to the next text. We will go ahead and get started. Context of White Supremacy. Mr. Richard Williams, Black and White, The Way I See It. Would another family have been treated as mine was? The answer to me is obvious. America offers dreams and nightmares, ease and struggle, trial and tribulation. The harsh reality is that it has not eradicated prejudice. Racial barriers have fallen in record numbers throughout the years. Blacks not only ride in the front of the bus, some of us own the bus company. The events at Indian Wells were a reminder of how much farther we had to go. Venus and I sat in that stadium subjected to painful boos and jeers. I was called nigger. Each time the word reached my ears, I closed my fist tighter till the bones in my hands ached. I was 59 years old at that time, and I had allowed myself to believe things had changed. This was a sign that things had gotten worse. I tried to reason with myself and not allow someone else's stupidity to reinforce my own. I struggled to keep my mouth closed because I was eager to lay a holy cursing on someone. Relax. I whispered to myself over and over. Stay calm. A white man sitting in the second row yelled out, "Nigger, if this was back in '65, I'd skin your black ass alive." I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Why don't you act like it's '65? I actually made a move in his direction, but he scampered away when another man said to him, "Leave those niggers alone and just boo the hell out of them." The sound of the angry crowd filled my head with voices from every direction of the stadium. We don't need a nigger in charge of tennis. Let's boo that nigger the whole match. He wants to be called Mr. Williams, but I call him Mr. Nigger. We don't want niggers out here anyway. If you don't like it, play your own tournament. That's why all the tennis players hate you now. The words stung. Hot beads of perspiration poured down my face. I was devastated. The year was 2001. How could the same racial issues I confronted in 1950 reach across time and imperil my daughters? I was told that prejudice did not exist in professional tennis. That proved to be untrue. What I found out was that prejudice did exist. It was accompanied by hate. As Serena walked into the almost filled to capacity stadium, she was met with an onslaught of boos. Did they realize they were insulting an American champion who had won the U.S. Open and successfully represented her country in the 2000 Olympics? Only hate would compel people to turn their backs on her that way. The crowd booed Serena as she got ready to play Kim Clijsters for the championship. People applauded her double faults and unforced errors. Blacks have long been accustomed to being belittled, criticized, and treated like second-class citizens. Here was proof that race still played a role in sports as Serena experienced firsthand the results of hate. Being black in a traditionally white sport, we had often been met with criticism and condemnation. We used to say, you can dress a black man up, but in the eyes of a white man, he's still just a dressed-up nigger. We had put a black tennis player on the podium of Olympic victory, but when she came down, she was still just another nigger. According to one of the commentators, the fans are looking for someone to blame for this situation. They, Serena and Venus, really shouldn't be in the same tournament. It's not fair for everybody to be left wondering. Fair? Did he mean it was fair for thousands of fans to jeer a teenager because they believed accusations against me were fixing games when both Venus and Serena played the same tournament? Even Elena Dementieva, when she was asked at her news conference after losing the quarterfinal to Venus, any predictions on tomorrow's match between sisters, answered, I don't know what Richard thinks about it. I think he will decide who's going to win tomorrow. Here was the truth of that day. A doctor confirmed Venus's injury and instructed her not to play. That decision was met with suspicion and distrust because we were not white. The reception we received that day at the Master Series final at Indian Wells was heartbreaking, but Serena rose to meet that challenge with real courage. She prayed for the strength to endure and refused to quit even when it felt like the whole world was against her. Later, she told me, "I went over on the changeover and I prayed to God just to help me be strong, not even to win, but to be strong, not to listen to the crowd. I just wanted some strength to go on." The difference between an ordinary person and an extraordinary person is simple. The extraordinary person is willing to fight a little harder. Serena proved no matter how harsh the treatment, she had the faith to overcome, the strength to make a stand, and the courage to keep fighting. When the last ball was hit, Serena held her hands up in victory. The audience had a mixed reaction. Some booed, some applauded. When Serena came over to hug Venus and me, the boos echoed through the stadium. I will remember that moment as long as I live. Commentators made excuses for the audience. They were just as guilty. One announcer said I requested a security guard. That was a lie. At no time did I request security. I believe the guard's presence was a way of adding fuel to the fire by whoever sent him. The memory of Indian Wells will always leave a sour taste in my mouth, but I want this statement to stand beside it. It would be a grave injustice to allow people to believe that every single individual in the stadium was against us. In the midst of the jeering, I could hear the voices of some who cheered for us. For them, I leave this message. What better friend than a friend who is willing to stand up for you in a time of trouble, in your time of need, when the whole world has turned its back on you? Regardless of how many people jeered us and called me nigger, today I still believe I had friends at Indian Wells. Thank you. That day, Serena was a true champion. She let no one else define her or her family, not with insults or with accusations. She rose to victory and defined herself. When she won the match, she faced the crowd from the center of the stadium court and said, "First and foremost, I'd like to thank my God Jehovah because you guys were a little tough on me today. I'd like to thank my dad, my family, my sister, and the sponsors. I'd like to thank Kim for providing such a wonderful final. I'd like to thank everyone who supported me, and if you didn't, I love you guys anyway." That is the courage of a true champion. Chapter 23. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. I am a great planner. It's the way I approach life. My plan to teach Venus and Serena to play tennis began with the 78-page written document I created before they were even born. I had a goal. I needed a plan to pursue it. The reality of our situation was that we had no shot at winning. We lived in the ghetto. We had no tennis background. The decision to raise the best tennis players in the world required planning that was outside the bounds of our family experience. We knew very few people in what was and still is an overwhelmingly white sport. We had no way to begin except to pick up our second-hand rackets and balls and begin to play. Along the way, we learned a great deal. Not all of it was about tennis. The greatest learning was about life. One of the reasons I wrote this book was to share that experience with you. If you want to raise kids to be champions at life, sports, academics, or anything else, I put together the most important principles I gathered as a father, a teacher, and a man. These principles are the result of a lifetime of learning and putting into practice what I learned. I call them my top 10 rules for success. Number 1, failing to plan is planning to fail. Number 2, always be positive. Number 3, confidence is essential to success. Number 4, faith is essential to confidence. Number 5, when you fail alone. Number 6, you learn by looking, seeing, and listening. Number 7, create theories and test them out. Number 8, always have a plan B. Number 9, an appreciative child is a blessing. Number 10, let no one define you but you. I can't say I had these rules so neatly put together in the beginning, but over the years, as our success mounted, I came to realize these were the ideas that mattered most. First, I believed that failing to plan is planning to fail. Planning is not faith. It's not an accident. It's the deliberate attempt to succeed. A child should be taught not only how to plan, but how to write a plan. Writing clarifies thinking. It defines the actions we are going to take to achieve our plan. I want to be honest. I wanted my kids to be the best tennis players in the world because I didn't have faith that I could make millions of dollars. I wanted them to have that level of success, and I didn't believe I could give it to them on my own. Over the years, I asked a lot of parents, why did you put your child into tennis? The usual reply is, oh, they love it so much. I've never seen one child love tennis so much that they'd give up everything for it, including their free time. They might like to hit the ball, and tennis is a great family sport, but when you're talking about putting children out there by themselves for hours every day, for years, no child really wants that. To teach my kids to follow the plan, I asked them how many dollars they would like to earn. Then I wrote down top incomes from many jobs and professions. I asked them which income they would prefer to have. They picked sports every time. Most parents don't teach their kids to plan because they don't know how to plan themselves. Here's where you have to create theories and test them out. I may believe X or Y, but is X or Y working? Are we closer to the goal we have set? Should this action be maintained? Is this person successful enough for me to listen to? Don't do what others say is the best for your children if they are not where you want them to be. If what you try doesn't work, have a plan B ready. If tennis failed, my plan B was education. It was a perfect plan B because either way, they would be prepared for the world they would have to face. I read somewhere that Serena said she never liked tennis. At such an early age, who would? At 3 and 4 years old, she and her sister were on the court hitting tennis balls while other girls were going to Chuck E. Cheese to eat have fun, and ride the slides. Knowing that, I tried my best not to make them bored. We never practiced like at the big tennis academies. I tried to make it fun, and I never criticized them no matter what they did. And we were always at their side, Oracene and I working together, teaching together, melding our different styles to bring the best out in both of them. How do you get a child to be great? You make them think great. I believe whatever you put in a child's mind will last forever, whether you want it to or not. For that reason, I would always tell them they were great. Once Venus hit a ball so badly, it went way over the fence. Nobody could hit a ball that bad. But how did I know what she was trying to do? She could have been experimenting. It didn't matter. To me, every shot was a good shot. I said, "Great shot." She stopped, looked at me, and said, "Do you really believe that's a great shot?" I said, "Oh yeah, you can't be beat. Hitting it like that, great shot, Venus." She just laughed. What happened years in the future? Venus was playing the Australian Open, a Grand Slam tournament. You only have 4 Grand Slams all year. In one game, she hit a serve so wrong it went way up in the stands, like the second deck. It went so far up that Venus had to cup her hands over her eyes to find it. For other players, it could have been an embarrassing moment that broke their concentration. Not Venus. When she finally saw where it landed, the first thing she did was laugh. She didn't put any pressure on herself because she wasn't ever taught pressure. She thought that serve was great because she had been taught greatness all her life. From the time the girls were tiny, whatever they did, I said, "That's great." Venus was 3, and we were in the park, and she had to go pee-pee, so she did right there. Her mom started yelling, but I said, "Let her. Don't yell or slap her. Let her pee-pee." And I told Venus she was great. I meant it. Everything the kids did, it was great. They would put on their own shows at home. I told them they were great. They'd bring home their grades. I'd say, "Your grade is great." Now their grades were great because they didn't have any choice. I told them, "You're great, so you can't bring in nothing but A+ here." That was what was expected. They were taught if you can't bring in an A+, it's your fault. Don't go blaming the teacher or the school. It's your responsibility. Good manners are a responsibility too. No parent should ever let praise be an excuse to accept bad manners. Serena put it very simply when she was asked about her home. Let me be honest with you. In a black family, you don't get angry, you don't talk back, and you don't yell because that's not allowed. I don't know what they show you on TV, but it's not allowed in black families. You do what you're told or you learn a lesson. You don't talk back or disrespect your parents. We never had trouble with manners in any of our kids, and to this day, I believe my daughters are some of the most well-mannered people in the world. They have been that way since they were children. A well-mannered child is a great asset to a family and will have a much easier time succeeding in the world. Always be positive. I tried always to be positive. I don't know if I always succeeded, but I sure tried my best to be positive every day. That way, I planted hope in their minds. It was the same with Serena as it was with Venus. One time, when Serena blasted the ball into the net time after time, and it seemed as if her control had just about deserted her, I just smiled and said the harshest thing I think I ever said to her on the court. "Serena, it seems like the ball has a mind of its own today." Once practice or a tournament was over, it was over. Tennis was not life. Venus had a problem in this area. When she first played junior tournaments, she loved to win. She won a lot too, but once it was over, I couldn't stop her from talking about it. On the way home, I told her, Venus, I don't want to talk about the tournament. We could talk about education, or books, or homework, but tennis and winning is over for now. Still, she couldn't stop talking about the match, so I stopped at a store and said, Venus, would you like to have something to drink? Yes, Daddy. Go in and get something to drink then. She was so happy when she went in the store, I kept driving. When I got home, her mother said to me, Where's Venus? I said, the last time I saw her, she was going into the store for a drink. Didn't you wait for her? No. You didn't go in with her? No. She talked about tennis too doggone much for me. Oracene left immediately to get Venus, but from that day on, it was rare that Venus, Serena, or I talked about tennis after the match was over. If you lost, you lost. If you won, you won. I didn't want to dissect it. I see parents complaining when their children come off the court after losing a match. It's disgraceful. Those girls or boys fought so hard, so long, they deserve only love and praise. Instead, they get disgust. That is the worst emotion a parent can ever give to a child. If my girls won, they had done the best they could. If they lost, they had done the best they could. Sadly, it isn't always that way with others. I've seen everything bad out there. I saw matches in Southern California so serious that the boys would fight on the court, and Jim Hillman, retired now from Southern California Tennis Association, had to run out to stop them. At one junior tournament, I was in a hurry to bring Venus somewhere, but I knew she would easily have her match over in 30 minutes. 40 minutes passed. 50 minutes passed. I went to see what was wrong. As I watched, every time Venus hit a winner, the girl called it out. Venus didn't mind staying all day, but I did. I took the other player's father aside and told him, Look, man, I don't mind you and your daughter cheating, but today I have to go. Why don't you tell her to start calling the balls right? He refused, and I actually had to take him out back and threaten him to get him to tell his daughter to call the match fairly. What had he taught her? She had to win at all costs. Honor and integrity meant nothing. With that kind of parental attitude, I could only imagine the beating the girl was going to get when she got home after losing the match to Venus. Most parents who go into athletics with their kids have great intentions. They spend a ton of money and work unbelievable hours hitting, traveling, supporting, and teaching. But some parents become so invested they become angry if they don't see progress and take it out on the child. Parents have to be very careful. You can't make someone develop against his or her schedule. I couldn't get Serena to catch up with Venus or Venus to do what it took to catch Serena. Children learn in their own time, and if they're going to be good, they're going to be good almost despite anything you can do. Then there are the parents who think that what they need is to get their child a John McEnroe racket or something like it. What they don't realize is McEnroe had a great gift. He was so gifted there's not another like him. I heard McEnroe once say that he didn't like all the training. I don't care what you do or how you do it. If your child is going to be good, he or she will be good anyway. The advice I give to parents is to let your children develop their own schedule, their own style, and be as patient as you can. If you can't be patient, take your child to practice and just stay away until it's over. My problem was, by the time Venus and Serena were ready to start playing tournaments, they had developed too much too soon. When Venus was 10, we went to a tournament, but when we got there, she had to play up to the 12s. She beat the 12-year-old so easily it was unbelievable. We went to another league, and she played in the 16-year-old division and beat up those girls too. It was then I realized she was way too far ahead of schedule for what I wanted her to be. Too many kids lose their childhood playing professional sports, especially tennis. First and foremost, I wanted her to be a child. You can't be an adult without having a childhood. That's why so many athletes grow up and act like children. They spend their money like children. They get on drugs like children. They break the law like children. They berate other people like spoiled children. It's all they know. Mom used to say that family life is a major university by itself. She was right. My theory is if you allow a child to be a child and train like a child and be treated like a child, that child will grow up to be a great adult. For that reason, and I really got criticized for it, I cut back a hell of a lot. It was very hard to hold Venus back when she was 12 years old because she was ready to play professional tennis. When she was 14, she was ready to take over her career, but I couldn't allow that. The first match she ever played, she played a girl named Sean. Venus beat her so easily, it looked like she could beat nearly anyone in the world. I knew then that Venus shouldn't play another tournament that year. Not one. If at 14 she could beat a player ranked in the top 100 in the world and beat her so easily, maybe she could beat the world number 30 or 40 player. She was just too far ahead of schedule. I had to hold her. Winning would take away her childhood. Suddenly, she'd be grown. Everybody would want to get her into this tournament or that. Let's give her a wild card, and I lose control of my daughter's right to be a child. The next match Venus played was against the fine Spanish player Arantxa Sanchez Vicario, the one who later on, sadly, lost all her money. Then she was number 2 in the world. Venus took the first set from her easily, although Venus eventually lost the match. Arantxa had to struggle to beat her. Afterward, I said, Venus is too far ahead. Why don't we take her to Magic Mountain or Knott's Berry Farm for a vacation? Parents must always remember it takes years to be an adult. In 1990, at 16, Monica Seles was the youngest ever French Open champion and world number 1. Venus started thinking if Monica Seles could do it, she could do it. I told her, you live in this house. You're going to school. The fact that Monica was 16 didn't mean she belonged there. At that age, even the law looks at you as a child. It was hard for someone with Venus's drive and talent to accept that, but adults have to be in charge. I made her a promise that the day she turned 18, she could go for it all, but until then, she'd abide by the house rules. The house rules were she could play 2 or 3 tournaments at 16, no more. Nothing was to be gained by playing more than that. The USTA might not have liked it. The media might not have liked it. People said I was ruining their chances. But how can it ruin children to let them be children? You can never come back in your life and be a child again, and you don't ever want to miss it. We've all seen girls and boys out there that didn't have a chance to be a child. Jennifer Capriati had no chance to be a child. She was too good, too young and pushed too far too fast. Both Venus and Serena have thanked me many times for letting them be children. They didn't miss a thing. Even though tennis was my dream, even though I knew the money would be there, big money, I knew I was going to lose my children if I let them play the way the USTA wanted. Now, which one was more important to me? I looked at a cute little Venus and Serena out there. No matter what I did, they were going to love me. No matter how much I fussed at them, they were going to love me, and that was a responsibility I could not betray. You should never take love and sell it, but some parents do just that. I knew a little girl named Serena before my own Serena was born. She didn't play tennis. Her mom wanted money, so she had victimized her and put her to work out on the street doing bad things. I knew them because I had a security contract at a store near where she was doing drugs and going from bad to worse. When I tried to explain how her mom was using her, she would say to me, "My mom wouldn't do that to me, would she?" I hated to tell her the truth because she loved her mom so much, but it was true. It was a shame. The girl is who Serena is named after. I wanted her name to remind me always to value my daughter, always to respect and love her, and to put her welfare first. Choosing between having a child whom you love and who loves you and money was easy. I found it even made it easier for me to accept my kids on the court. So many times it went like this. "I don't want to practice, Daddy." "What you want to do?" "I want to go shopping." "Let's go." Every time they asked to come off the court, we went. I saw parents tell their kids they were going to stay on this damn court till you get it right. Not me, not ever. I never was a super coach, but I sure have been, I hope, a super parent. As we climbed the tennis ladder, we remained a family first and foremost. After practice, the girls worked at their education, went to dance lessons, and did what kids do. Playing only 2 or 3 tournaments a year let them work at what they liked. Go on down the beach, surf, read, whatever. My plan was to make it as much fun as possible and as uplifting. When the girls got older, we played in different parks and sometimes at tennis clubs. Sometimes we just go on road trips. Anything to be together as a family. I'd rev up our old Volkswagen bus and get everyone inside it, and off we'd go. As Venus and Serena began to have a reputation, I took them to better neighborhoods where homes cost $1 million. See, girls, you can have that if you work hard. It's one of my most important rules. You learn a lot by looking, seeing, and listening. I saw they played better in the better neighborhoods. They saw the rewards. They saw the better life. It didn't take a genius to make the connection. They played better there because they could see the position they could be in one day. Visual messages sink in. We see them every day and don't even realize it. It's why advertising is so powerful. It's why companies spend fortunes on billboards every year. Later, when we moved to our place in Florida, I put signs up all over our property so they could always learn by looking and seeing. For the same reason, I never wanted to criticize my children. Harsh words leave a lasting impression, a negative message. I saw too many fathers who just criticized and never taught anything. It takes a strong child to survive that. I always try to be positive and give the girls loving messages of strength. Venus was easy. She was as calm as they come. Our family child. If the key to success is how well you listen, Venus was always the greatest listener in the house. I never met a child like her, so understanding, so insightful, and so smart. I used to wonder sometimes how she learned all the things she learned. I put up signs to let Venus know she had the knowledge to make her dreams come true. Serena always had power and drive and already knew a lot from watching Venus. It sounds funny, but she was probably way ahead of where I thought she was at a very early age. We still laugh when she tells the story of her first tournament when she was 8. My dad only let Venus play because she could beat him in singles. I got angry and told him I felt I should play too. In the Volkswagen bus, he told me, "If you can beat me, then I'll let you play this tournament." Now, Venus had waited a really long time and had lost. She was mad at him until they played again and she won. I was really happy for her, but I couldn't beat my dad, so I figured out a way around it. Like he says, Venus is all about honesty and truth, but he doesn't say that about me because, if the truth be told, I'm about schemes. When I saw 2 application forms on my dad's desk at home, obviously one for Venus, I filled out the other one for myself and sent it in. On the day of the tournament, while Venus was playing, I just went up to the registration table and took my place in the other side of the draw. Can you believe that? I'm smiling as I think about it, but there I was, having told Serena to go off and play on the swings or something while I went to watch Venus. A few hours later, people were coming over to me saying, "Hey, did you know your daughter is winning?" I said, "Sure, I can see that." "No, Mr. Williams, we mean Serena." I couldn't figure out what kind of game Serena was playing on the swings that it was so important that she was winning it. That's when I found out that she had entered herself in the match. When she won, I was very proud. Both of my daughters were winners that day. I was so pleased at Serena's success, I wasn't going to do anything but praise her. However, I put up a sign that read, "Serena, you must learn to listen." I learned a lot by watching and listening too. No one can predict everything. No one knows everything. If we fail to learn, we fail to change. No matter how hard I stuck to my plan, I was always willing to modify it in the light of experience. I saw that neither Venus nor Serena had the same enthusiasm when we worked out in Compton as when we went to fancy places like the Riviera Country Club in Pacific Palisades. I allowed them to play there. It had a surprising impact on all of us. When Venus was 9 years old, we were at Riviera for a junior tournament. The girls had finished their practice, and I was off looking at the buildings and marveling at how well they kept the grounds and courts. When I got back, I found Venus and Serena sitting happily at the pool like 2 little princesses, each with a hamburger, French fries, and a big milkshake. "How did you get those?" I asked, surprised because I knew they didn't have any money. Serena grinned. "It's on my tab." I sat there for about 2 minutes thinking about how to correct that attitude. We were Compton, not Country Club, right? "Would you girls like to live here?" I asked. They looked at me like I was crazy. "No? Then you can get out and walk yourselves right on back to the car," I said, "because you know where you live at and you're not allowed to live that way. I brought you peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and that's what you have to eat. Don't let me ever see this "it's on my tab" no more. You learn a lot by listening, seeing, and looking. Well, me too. I saw the look on their faces as they followed me to the car. They didn't get it. They were only kids. They had been told the meal was free, and I wasn't there to tell them different. This time, it was my turn to learn a lesson. Hold on, kids. Go back and eat what you ordered and enjoy it. I told them, and they scampered off happily. When I first saw Venus and Serena eating that way, I was upset. No eating ice cream, hamburgers, and French fries. It's not our style. But they were just kids. I was being unreasonable, expecting them to know what I had not taught them. So when you plan, remember that you're planning for children. A child doesn't think like an adult. That day, I learned it's easy, being an adult, to think as an adult, to act as an adult, and make decisions as an adult. I had all my nice adult plans. I just forgot to remember they were for children. It's a great thing when children have their own plans and share them with their parents or adults. I learned a lot letting my kids teach me. Most kids do not want to announce they don't know something. As often as not, they will not share with you what they do not understand. But you can always come to a subject on a child's level and act like you don't know it. I had to do that a lot of times. I don't understand that new math, Serena. I can't help you. I'll show you, Daddy. This is the way. And she went to the teacher to get the information to teach me. I found that I had a better relationship that way by not knowing too damn much. It allowed them to feel intelligent and useful. It was another thing I learned from wanting to be the best father I could be. I didn't have a real father to learn from, so I read books and talked to different people and spent my time thinking up neat things to do and fun ways for them to learn. There are many things that help you be a better parent. Work together as a family, but be spontaneous together as well. No planning, just be happy together and laugh. I believe that every day God provides a way for us to learn something of value and to teach our children the same. One time I took everyone on a family outing. It was a great idea, but we ran into many problems. My old Volkswagen bus could fit the 5 girls and me and Oracene inside. It was always fun. We'd go for a ride and have dinner out somewhere, an early dinner, probably the earliest dinner anyone ate, often around 3:30 p.m. so we could keep riding. Another of my rules is that when you succeed, everyone is there, but when you fail alone. This is why you always want to succeed. This trip proved it. The Volkswagen's clutch broke in San Jose, California, 400 miles from home, and all I had was $50 in my pocket. Where were we going to get the car fixed and eat and spend the night, 5 kids and 2 adults on $50? I'm hungry, Daddy. I'm hungry too, Daddy. Me too, Daddy. It went on. I had no credit cards, no checkbook. I didn't take anything because we were just going driving and I never intended to go so far from home. It had to be me to the rescue. I got some pliers and a wire coat hanger, crawled under the car and bent the hanger to secure the clutch. It looked perfect. To the cheer of all, I drove us off and got 10 yards before the coat hanger broke, the clutch blew out, and the car stopped dead. There I was, standing with the family and the dead car on the side of the road, with everyone commenting not so kindly on my mechanical ability when a gentleman in a tow truck saw us and pulled over. He got out and walked over. We had gotten some recognition for how the girls were playing, but it was still new to me when I saw it on his face. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you Richard Williams?" "Yes, sir, I am." "Mr. Williams, I've heard about you and your girls." "You have?" He nodded and pointed to the car. "You have a problem?" "We sure do," I agreed. "My clutch is shot. We live way down in Compton, and I never intended to come this far. I only brought $50. He thought for a minute. "Tell you what," he said. "I can tow your car to the station, but I can't get a clutch cable until tomorrow because we don't have foreign cars there. I have to drive to San Francisco or Oakland to get it. That sounds fine to me, I said, trying to figure out how we were all going to sleep in the car. The girls might have been thinking the same thing because none of their faces looked very happy. And for tonight, the man continued, I'll put you guys up in a motel, and when you get home, you can send the money back to me. All of a sudden, there were smiles everywhere. Cheers almost. The kids thought this was just great because they would get to stay in a motel. The whole outing turned into a great trip. I had failed alone, but I succeeded in front of everyone. Early the next morning, we got a clutch cable and he fixed the bus. I thanked him and drove home. I lost no time. I went right to the bank and picked up the money I owed him, but instead of mailing it, I got everyone back in the car and we drove all the way back to give it to him personally. When we got there, he said, "You didn't have to come back, Mr. Williams. I knew you were good for it. You could have mailed it to me." That was true enough, but I didn't think it showed the proper appreciation. It wouldn't show how much we owed this man for what he did for us. That was the lesson I wanted to teach the children. It was a very important one. When you're raising your children, one of the greatest things you can teach them is to appreciate what they get from the home they live in. 99% of the time, if they're not taught that, they will think that what they receive is automatic. They automatically get food. They automatically get clothes. They automatically get a two-seater car. I found that once my children learned to appreciate what they received, they accepted the plans I had for them without griping or complaining. Appreciating what they got was almost more important than anything we gave them. They learned to appreciate their family. They learned to appreciate being women. They learned to appreciate their talent. It was easier for me to plan with them. I even enjoyed it more because they'd say, "Oh, thank you, Dad, for getting this for me." I could always tell when their mom took them out to eat because they showed their appreciation when they came home. "You know what, Dad? I brought you a little of my cake," or "I brought you a little piece of this here." Their appreciation made me super proud to be a dad. It was a great lesson for me. I didn't know how important appreciation was when I wrote my plan originally. What a great thing it was for me to learn. I went back to my plan and added, "Teach appreciation," and added all kinds of thoughts on it. That lesson remains one of my most valuable discoveries as a parent. An appreciative child is a blessing beyond measure and a joy to the world. Amen. Context of White Supremacy. Feel free, chime in if you have thoughts you would like to share. The number is 760-569-7676. The code is 564-943#. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. That number again, 760-569-7676. The code is 564-943#. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. If you do not want to use your phone to dial in, feel free. You can use the free Flash player. Works anywhere in the world. Simple process. You can just put in the following URL, which is tiny, TINY.cc/1 race. And that is the number 1. That address again is tiny, TINY.cc/1 race. And that is the number 1. When you put in that address, look on the left side of the page. You'll see a link. It says Flash Player, left side of your page. Click it. It will open a tiny window on your screen. The top line is a drop-down menu. Select the number that I just gave out, which again is 760-569-7676. The next line, it will ask for the code. That code again is 564943. The final line, it will request a name. You can click random keys. You can put in a nickname. If you're comfortable with your real name, that's fine too. When you get all that info entered, press the green button at the bottom. It will connect you to the live broadcast, and you should be able to hear us. It'll sound as good as your internet connection allows. It's the same procedure. If you would like to participate, press *6. You'll see the dial pad on your screen. Once you do that, you'll hear an audio prompt. Press the number 1. We'll see you on the switchboard, and we will bring you into the discussion. We've got one more audio segment left, and then we will be all done. So feel free, whatever commentary you have about what we heard this week, in addition to kind of final concluding thoughts on the work in total. Definitely, we can also make time for the comments that were targeting racist comments, in my view, targeting Serena Williams this week. But let's save that for after the second audio clip. Make sure we spend time discussing the actual text that we're reading. With that, any of the folks who have dialed in with a hand up, all of the folks who have a hand up so far, your line should be open. Anybody else who's listening in, if you have comments, things that you want to add on, feel free. Line should be open. I will mute myself.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I don't really have nothing that stood out to me except for the part where his truck broke down. I had that same look from had that same treatment myself. Issue when they had a truck break down on a drive going long distance. So, but he had some spirit world on his side at that time. He had somebody really looking out for him, and he just had that wasn't no mistake. That wasn't no just by chance. A guy just happened to drive by with a tow truck. Yeah, he had somebody really looking out for him at that time, and really, really looking out for him. So that was like a happy spot to me. I really like that part of the story too. I want to ask about your. You had a show, program Wednesday, right?
It got rescheduled. The guest got his itinerary mixed up. We rescheduled, and we actually did it today. We did it this morning. This is our second broadcast of the day. The archives just have not posted, but it happened very early. It was at 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. He was with us this morning. We did talk about his book, This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed. So just check both of today's programs should post within an hour or so of this program concluding.
Okay, because I was looking for the poster. I thought the racist white supremacists was on their job and making sure that didn't get out there. And I was like, where's the post? And then when I looked at it, it was saying it was on a Friday. And I'm looking at it, I said, today is Friday. No, it said Wednesday. So I got confused by looking at your post. And I wasn't sure that I didn't think about it being on at the time that I was looking at it. So, yeah. All right, thanks for that information. I'll mute myself and listen to everybody else.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay, greetings, Gus. Greetings to the other callers and listeners. Another week of Mr. Williams fascinating me, with his book. I started out with, I've noticed a pattern. White people blame non-white people, particularly black people, of the same behavior that they themselves are guilty of. You know, for instance, when the media was calling Mr. Williams a racist, you know, something that's not even possible, but, you know, calling him a tennis father from hell, and when in reality, I don't think there's been any father associated with any sport that's been more successful, you know, raising professionals, children that went on to have as many successes as the girls did, maybe short of the Mannings. But he was accused of destroying his daughter's marketing and advertising ability. You know, when in fact the media was had been complaining and degrading and devaluing the Williams sisters for years. Mr. Williams raised those girls, Venus and Serena, to handle racism that he figured that they were going to endure. But yet still in the book it said that he couldn't believe it, that it still existed, the same thing that he had experienced 50 years prior. Another thing that's fascinating about Mr. Williams is that he was responsible for touching a lot of lives. And upon reading recently the Dark Alliance, I had mentioned that Mr. Williams had taught Freeway Rick Ross tennis. And then I found that later on in Freeway Rick Ross's book, he gave credit to Mr. Williams for actually saving his life. He said that being taught tennis saved his life, got him off the streets. He probably would have met some type of demise if he hadn't learned the game. Of course, he went on to go to prison and be a drug kingpin, but, you know, at least Mr. Williams was out there influencing people's lives. And, he was a good positive image in the young man's life early on. I thought it was interesting, too, that he thought that he still had friends at Indian Wells. And I think he said, this is hard to believe. In the midst of all the jeering, he could hear the voices of some who was cheering for us. You know, to me, that reminds me of the practice of looking for some well-meaning white folks. We're always looking for that one or two or that few that, you know, has to get recognized, that they're not like all the rest. One thing I can say for him, though, he didn't lose his cool during that test of his patience, because I know myself, I would have a hard time being positive at a time like that. I liked his plan B for the sisters. Education, you know, was going to be his plan B. I thought that was admirable. But the story about the parent and the child when Venus was playing and the child was cheating and making the bad calls, when Mr. Williams had to take the man out back and threaten him to get him to tell his daughter to call the match right. I was wondering if that was a black person, because he said that he could only imagine the type of beating that she would get after she got home for losing to Venus. And it just seems strange that he would think a white person would beat his daughter for something like that. And last but not least, I like the part about appreciation. And it showed in the book at least one time that he wasn't completely in a controlling type situation, and that he felt that he could have been wrong at some time, and that he took a positive lesson out of that. And the appreciation part reminded me today, I was driving and I saw a homeless guy, and he put the sign up next to my window. And so I looked in my wallet for $1, but I only had $5 bills in there. So I just gave the guy a $5 bill. And the guy was walking away. I said, "Man, you're not going to even thank me? I just gave you a $5 bill, man." "Oh, I'm sorry. I said, God bless you." I said, "Look, man, don't put God in this. All you have to do is say thank you for me. This is one black person doing something for another black person. So we'll leave it like that, but you need to learn to be appreciative." Now, I'll mute my line. Thanks for taking the call.
Right on. Appreciation, definitely important. White people just haven't gone to see that presentation about 2 weeks ago on Josh Powell. White people certainly do beat their children. That's there's lots of evidence for that. So I don't know. I almost feel like the way the book has been presented so far, that they would have announced that, maybe, that it was a black opponent that was doing this, a black father, or at least a black opponent that was doing this, because they made such a point about talking about how it's white dominated, and still aren't really that many black people who are playing tennis. And it seems like with the story with Old Whiskey, where he was talking about it was the black young male that he trained who did not come back and talk to him and didn't even acknowledge him when he was at his tennis tournament. Like, I'm not, I don't know. It just with the white ghostwriter and everything, to me, it seems like that might have been something that they would have included if that had been a black person that was doing that. I don't know. I guess if I had to put some money down, just because it's such a white-dominated thing, I would just assume that it would be a white person unless otherwise stated. But yeah, white people definitely lay hands on their children too. Even Crystal Tyler had to testify that she has done that herself. Any of the other folks on the line have something they wanted to get in as well?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Hey, this is Black Moniker. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to say I thought it was great how Mr. Williams didn't allow his children to be go too far before their time. A lot of times I think what happens to a lot of sports players, they get into the NBA very young, and then they get into all this trouble because they're inexperienced. And it seems that, white people always want to take our best from us, so they can then groom them, mentor them, and really what they want to do, it seems, is to benefit from them financially. And if, Venus and Serena hadn't been so great, nobody would be interested in them. Nobody would give them a chance and so forth. So I just thought that was interesting that he knew when to kind of pull back the reins and to let them be kids and not to, get caught up in the success they were having, but being able to stand back and say, no, not yet, and if they're going to be successful, they're going to be successful, and they're always going to be happy with me as their father. So I need to be their father first. That's all I want to say.
Mm-hmm. think he had said before, at least in the BBC interview, that his former wife, Oracene, also was very helpful in that. Sometimes when she felt he was being too hard on them with their routine and their regimen, she would come in and kind of, hey, they're children, let's cut them a little slack, have a little fun about things. But yeah, I think that I agree that's very important in terms of allowing them to be children. Anybody else on the line who hasn't shared yet, has something they wanted to make sure they got in? Any of the other, just making sure anybody we missed had something they wanted to get in. Okay. Should have time if folks have other comments. We'll have time for that as well.
Could I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I do have one more thing I thought about. Thanks. When he left his daughter at the store because she wouldn't stop talking about the game, I thought that was interesting, and it made me think of Marcus Garvey. And when he was a boy, his father left him in a graveyard in a hole that they had dug to teach his son a lesson that, you have to be self-sufficient and get out of trouble by yourself. And that then reminded me of what Mr. Williams' rule was, which is if you fail alone. So I thought that was interesting that he would leave his daughter to teach her a lesson, that he didn't want to, make tennis everything in life. And he left her at the store almost like to say, now you got to figure out how to get back yourself. So I thought that was interesting.
Just keeping in mind, this is in Compton, where he's talking about the drug sales are all over the place and how many beatings he's endured. I didn't I didn't know how I felt about that. Like I don't know exactly how old she was at that time, but it looked like Oracene, his former wife, was not pleased about it either. She immediately went to retrieve her, but that's neither here nor there. One of our listeners wrote in, because I had told people who listen to the archives who can't participate live, they can, if they want to write in their commentary, we can do it that way as well. One of our listeners wrote in, he said, Mr. Williams' book is great, however, his methods are confusing as white supremacists. He made money and owned his own seemingly successful businesses. He lived in Long Beach near the beach at a time when Long Beach was considered an LA suburb, but moved his kids to Compton, the people he loved more than anything, the worst ghetto in all of California, to make them tough tennis champions. In my opinions, Mr. Williams was selfish and stubborn. He was determined to make his 78-page plan for his kids a reality, regardless of the ultimate outcome. What teenager would choose to stay in school over playing a sport, especially when playing the sport was the number one priority in their life and the purpose of their conception? He never mentions a backup plan or anything for the girls if tennis failed, and what if they did not want to play tennis? Would he still have raised them in Compton? When he took his kids to Skid Row, and to contrast that, he took them to Beverly Hills, to me this is backwards. Why not show them the affluent black area of LA like Baldwin Hills? To me, this was showing the girls how good white people live in contrast to blacks. Forget the fact that he was on Skid Row. He could have just taken them from Compton to Beverly Hills to show the disparity. No wonder they are dating white men. He probably had enough money to just raise his kids in Beverly Hills and pay to send them to the best tennis camps in America. In my mind, that is what he should have done. What is the point of making money and owning a business if you're not doing it to better yourself, to better your lifestyle, and to create a better lifestyle for your kids? To me, the point of making money and entrepreneurship is to make life a little easier for the next generation. He grew up in a shack in an overtly racist Louisiana, and he made it out of that and moved to California to make money. Why move his kids to a shack in Compton, California? Who does that? And I'll stop there. At any rate, I think we did get some information this week on his backup plan. We just had to keep reading a little bit. Yeah, I think we talked this before as well about the importance or the significance, the logic of moving to this crime-infested, drug-infested area to raise, quote-unquote, tough champions. I think we had discussed that previously. Especially interesting given what he said this week about how the girls would play better when they went to the quote-unquote affluent areas, the nice, I guess, private tennis clubs, going to be most like 95% probably exclusively white, that they played better in those environments as opposed to when they were on the dilapidated courts back in Compton. That to me might also suggest maybe, they would have been just fine. I think he even says, like, if your children are going to be great at something, they're going to be great in spite of whatever you do as parents to train them. I think even that as well might support, hey, this whole going to Compton to be tough thing is not necessary. Like, if they're going to be great, they're going to be great. You can do that in a safe environment where you don't have to deal with all the unpleasantness. Just going back to the Indian Wells situation for a moment, I also thought it was very interesting. I think Mr. Demery-Ford's commentary about white people tend to spin things around and accuse you of doing the exact thing that they're doing, whether it's, practicing racism and they'll accuse you of being racist or whatever, a lot of projection. We were just talking about this on the early program today with Mr. Cobb. Ignorance. He says that he was not going to allow the terroristic behavior to get to him just because these white people were being stupid, the stupidity on these folks' part. And I was saying that this morning, that white people have heavily invested in that concept that racism is the product of ignorance or stupidity or a lack of information. And nothing could be further from the truth. These white people that were doing this, they are not ignorant. They are displaying consistent racist behavior, racist ideas. That's even related, in my opinion, to what's got them in the news again this week. Also thought in terms of making sure that he preserved and valued his children's childhood, I thought that was great as well. I thought he could have even given some more examples, like Jennifer Capriati, the drug problems that she's had in her career, and difficulties and whatnot. I think it would have been very easy to cite many of the white males and females in the world of professional tennis who started at a very young age in their young teens and ended up having lots of problems, maturity issues, and what have you. Would have been very easy. And I think we were talking about this last week, how that has probably, at least in my view, contributed to their longevity, being successful. Really, I mean, for tennis, 30s is old. For tennis, you have a lot of people that retire from professional tennis. They're like 25, 26 in their mid or late 20s. So I suspect that has a lot to do with both of them, the longevity that they are enjoying and being able to play at a really high level, even this quote unquote late in their careers. Also, just quick rewind, that could also have been the influence of the ghostwriter. The section on Indian Wells where I think, as Mr. Demery-Ford was saying, they got to find some good white people who were not racist, who were cheering or saying pleasant things, who were yelling encouragement. Got to make sure that we pick them out. And that is, if you watch the match, that is visible. You can't hear some of the people cheering, but, I think we talk about on a consistent basis not being statistically significant, and you don't want to obscure the overwhelming pattern, picking out a few outliers here or there. But I thought that could have been some ghostwriter influence there. Also thought it was great hearing the anecdote about how Serena got her name in valuing your children. I mean, that is profound. If that's how she came to be named Serena, seeing this child being taken advantage of by her parent and prostituted in that manner to make money, and just to make sure that ideal is being reaffirmed every time that her name is said. The importance of valuing your children, just outstanding. Stop there if any of the other folks have comments on the line. Anybody else has things they wanted to get in? Okay. Nothing else standing out. Folks that are listening in, we do have another audio segment. We're not done with the book. We are closing in, but we do have one more audio segment before we're all done. Feel free if you have any other closing thoughts to get in before we wrap things up. Somebody getting in something?
Yes, just want to put that on that same issue about the contradiction. That did bring up some more contradiction that I was hearing. Because before, I said on another program that it just didn't make sense that he would take his kids into these areas to practice, and they have areas where he didn't have to have them around bullets and guns to practice. And then he wants to talk about how well they played in the more established areas without, where he's thinking that, it's because it's, white or controlled and it's, more control, under their control, that they played better because of that. I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe they played better because they ain't got to worry about ducking bullets. That's probably why they played better. They could just focus on tennis, and just, they feel safe. That could be the main reason why they're playing better. But he might have been thinking something different. He confuses me. I tell you, just one minute I'm thinking, hey, that's cool. Next minute I'm like, now why in the world would you do that? So he got me up and down on a roller coaster, but I'm listening, trying to decipher it as well. So I don't know. I'll mute my line.
I'd like to add one more thing.
Oh, we can
be heard?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Mr. Williams was saying that during the time when Serena had to continue playing, I guess after Venus, bowed out because of her knee, then after she won the match, she came over and she hugged her dad and Venus, and there were boos all through the stadium. And the commentators made excuses for their audience. He said they were just guilty. But I find that to be a pattern. They minimize the behaviors of a terroristic and trifling crowd. And I don't think it has that much to do with guilt. I think it's just a coming together and looking out for each other's back, so to speak. And he said that the one announcer said that Mr. Williams requested a security guard. And he said that he never did, and that at no time did I request security because I believe that the guard's presence was a way of adding fuel to the fire by whoever sent him. And I thought that was interesting because he was in the security field himself, and how he felt that sending security at a time when the crowd was getting unruly would have been adding fuel to the fire. I'll mute my line.
Good point. Good point. Good point. Absolutely.
Good point. Like I said, confusion.
Any of the other folks with us have comments they wanted to get in as well?
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. Please forgive any background noise you hear. I'm driving, but I did want to speak on what stood out for me, and that was how Mr. Williams, throughout the book, he came to realize, I think his mom said when he was leaving Shreveport and looking, he's like going to different places and he's running into racism, and how when they played at Indian Wells, how shocked he was, I guess, that, no matter how far he succeeded or pushed throughout life, racism was there. And even his daughters had to experience it. And, I remember early in the book, his mom was sharing with him how, well, no matter where you go, you're going to face it. So it doesn't make sense to go to Chicago and things like that. And so I just thought that was interesting because just, I can relate to having to face that reality. We are under the illusion when we're chasing success, and you think that you're escaping racism, but in reality, it's here until we decide to, really work at eliminating it. And so I just thought that was profound for me because I related to, I guess, the reality, how he expressed, even here, I can't believe I have to deal with this, and now my daughters are dealing with it. And I'll mute my line.
Yeah, I thought that was important. I thought that was important as well. He said he made the error of allowing himself to get comfortable, which that is a common theme, unfortunately, for many of us, thinking that somehow we have found some well-meaning, good, not racist white people, or it's 2014, it's 2017. Certainly, we're beyond all of that. I think that happens, unfortunately, to a lot of. They said that Serena Williams. I think she started this week off saying that it's 2014, and we're still going through this. Hopefully, we will understand that this racism thing is eternal. It has some sticking power. And again, white people, I think, have done a good job of investing in that too. That's even when they use the term progress. We've made so much progress. It's like when you bring up racism and they say, oh my God, we're not in slavery. We're not in Jim Crow. Things are so much better, as though the problem has been solved when we're still dealing with many of the exact same issues that they were talking about in those times. Yeah.
And can I just say something else too?
Yes, ma'am.
It made me also kind of reflect on, there was a part where Mr. Williams was saying during that experience, I don't want us to kind of think that everyone in the crowd was booing. And, it kind of made me chuckle at how we always want to leave hope for one good old white person that, is rooting for us. And I thought that was interesting how the experience affected him so much, but he still had an inkling of hope of those little few people in the crowd that wasn't against them. And I know that, me just experiencing, white folks, it's confusing. They'll confuse you when you have that one person that you're thinking, oh, well, no, you can't feel this way too. And it just made me chuckle, because we fall for the banana in the tailpipe, so to speak, but the less confused we become, the easier we'll see that that's just not the case.
Absolutely. That's another pattern, I think, throughout this text. I think there have been many presentations of good white people, not racist white people who helped him, gave him information, or that he wanted to help out along the way. I think that's pretty consistent. And I think it adds to that confusion where you're just not able to get an accurate grasp of the problem that we're facing. What does it mean to be a white person? And why is this phenomenon of racism? Why is it so consistent wherever it doesn't matter geographically? As his mom said, it doesn't matter where you are globally. This guy in Russia making these comments. Why is it that it's got this sticking power and it's so widespread? I think it just confuses you when you keep getting thrown off by, oh, well, this is a good white person here, this is a good white person there, and not expecting terroristic behavior. Let's see. Also,
can I be heard?
Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Greetings, everyone. I was just kind of like formulating something to say from listening over a period of the sessions that I have been able to listen to, even on listening to the archives. And I would say that Mr. Williams, I would think that he played a pretty much influence on his. I don't know about his other children, but the two that are globally well known, that he contributed towards them from a standpoint of from my experience on non-white black athletes, that if they do have any financial troubles, I haven't heard about them. So I guess he played a positive part in that aspect. From what I've been listening to about the book itself, and also the little bit that I know about the two daughters, Venus and Serena, they have a understanding about the profession that they are involved in more than just from a participant standpoint, which is something that needs to be more of with non-white black males and females that are involved into sports entertainment, that they should get to know about the business itself, the business of sports entertainment itself. There's a lot to be said about the extent of understanding the system of racism, white supremacy, when you make the comparison from Compton, California to so-called exclusive white neighborhood, and making that juxtaposed as you don't want to be a part of this, you want to be a part of that. I would guess all of us who are on this program understand that it's a lot more sophisticated than that, the system of racist white supremacy. That I don't think really got across by making that type of experiment, although he was attempting to experiment, but I think it needs to be a little bit more extensive than what I heard in the readings, when he took his children to both places to make a comparison. And in turn, also, what was left out was the extensive damage that occurs when or if you are having sex with white people. That may not have come up. I think probably, I don't know if it would come up in the book later on. I don't know, but I would be very curious to find out from the two ladies on at their age why they have not been maritally committed to another person and have children. I would be curious to hear their report on that if they ever made that public at any time. Albeit I do know that they have dated white people, which I suspect means they had sex with white people. Although, from a personal standpoint, it is a non-white black male that I coached. I'm not just a retired fireman. I also have been a high school football coach for a very long time. And one of the kids that I've coached over the years did, according to him, did go out with Serena. on several occasions. And he is a non-white black male. Yeah, I was just thinking about those things and all of the things that he did, quote unquote, prepare them for, and which was good and a large part is constructive, and it shows within the two children. As far as everything I've seen about them, because one thing about it, if white people got some dirt on you, they certainly will bring it out. And I don't hear a whole lot of issues and problems with them from a financial standpoint. They seem to be well adjusted in goals outside of just tennis itself, that sort of thing. So that I think, and I would suspect that their father and their mother had a lot to do with it. But the extent of racism, white supremacy, and how it really can harm non-white black people for what they don't know. Some things, I see it in them also, in the two kids. That's all I have to say right now.
Appreciate that. Yeah, definitely. Just in terms of you saying, like, you don't really see their names splashed out there connected to mismanaging their money or just a lot of craziness. Most of the time it's them being victimized. Some white person, one of their white people that they're playing against on the tour, one of their white opponents, or some other white person making racist comments about them. But I think that too goes to Mr. Williams talking about the importance of planning. And I think this week he was talking about not only emphasizing the importance of planning with your children, but teaching them how to write a plan. He talked about the impact of writing something down and how writing helps you clarify your thinking and refine your ideas, your concepts. I thought that was really important as well, especially being able to convey the importance of that to children. Excellent. That's something that we can all do and apply that to racism. I mean, certainly you can apply it to other matters as well, but definitely applying that to racism and responses, how you think about and understand racism, as well as how to respond to racism, white supremacy, just the importance of being codified and sometimes writing out that code specifically so that you have it clear, easy to grasp, exactly, it's focused, and you can explain it to other folks so that it makes sense and they grasp what it is that you're trying to achieve. Any other thoughts, things stick out before we get to final audio segment?
I would like to. Just one more thing, briefly. For the most part, I have coached football players, and I would say probably 99% of those kids that I've worked with, and several of them are playing professional sports. Stephen Tullett, Teddy Bridgewater. Most of those kids were not prepared for anything other than just the playing aspect of that particular sport. And what he was doing with them as children it's just so vital. It's just so vital on what he was doing. It doesn't matter if they were tennis stars or not. And from what I'm hearing, from that aspect, whatever they would have gotten into, they probably would have been pretty much adjusted, in just about any particular profession or endeavor that they grasp onto, because they've had two people to be right there for them in that aspect, and that's really is key about this what he's writing about in this book. But go ahead, the other caller. Okay, yes. No, I wanted to comment on what you had said earlier about marriage and kids for the girls.
Yes, sir.
Early on in the book, Mr. Williams admitted to taking the dolls away from them, not allowing them to play with dolls to get some type of maternal instinct going. So he deliberately planned that, and I read somewhere it was a little bit more than what he admitted to. They said that he used to pull the heads of the dolls off in front of the girls.
Wow.
You know, he made it dramatic, you know, to bring home the point that he didn't want them going in that direction. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Wow. I mean, I agree with Dr. Welsing with her scientific formula, you know, about, you know, as far as planning when it comes to that subject. I think she said something about first get all of your training, get all of your what is called college, and you know, and that sort of thing. I basically call it training, that sort of thing, and actually be employed, effectively be employed, you know, that sort of thing before you go in that department. But I mean, when it comes to that, both of those ladies are well beyond that standpoint, and it seems to be some sort of other reasoning on why, and that may be it, sir, with the whole idea of pulling heads off of dolls. You know, I don't know what constructive comes out of that, but yeah, I remember hearing that in the reading about the. Now I agree with part of that on what he was doing, attempting to do with the dolls when they were little children. But the second thing that you said about with the pulling the heads off of dolls and whatnot, that I mean, as quiet as kept, that may have some directly to do with the curiosity that I have, you know, about them, you know, pulling heads off of dolls, you know. Wow. Interesting.
The first thing I thought of is that maybe the dolls were white. The reason why they didn't want to play with them. That's the first thing, because that's the same thing that with my wife and I do. We cut down on our daughter's use of white dolls in the house, and we make note that we don't buy white dolls anymore at all. So that's the first thing I thought of. Maybe the dolls were white, and he just didn't want to admit that in the book. Or again, we're dealing with what we suspect is a ghostwriter. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that was my thought process, you know, ripping the heads off the dolls, and you know, my wife even gone so far to even had thrown some dolls away because they came with one of the toys my daughter likes, and one set was a family of white people, the other set was a family of black people. Well, white people didn't make it back to their house last, you know, on their trip for some reason. So, and next then ended up in the trash, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you know. Just don't. You know, my daughter never thought about him again. That's what I think. But again, you know, we don't know.
Have the two? And this is for anybody. Have the two daughters ever talked about marriage and children themselves? Does anybody know anything about that in interviews or whatnot? I mean, they've had tons of interviews and there's tons of subjects that they talked about and have asked about. I wonder if anybody have heard anything on that subject.
I think in this book, I think Serena Williams has talked about she wants to have children and she intends on applying a lot of the strategies that she got from her dad. That's in this text. And then last week, I think Pumpkin, she shared an article where Serena Williams had said that she was not going to pursue any other potential mates who were not Jehovah's Witnesses. That was a criteria that she was going to be sticking to for any future partners, that they had to be a Jehovah's Witness. So,
wow,
it seems like that's something that she is thinking about and wants to do. It's from the indications that I've seen, it seems like something that she does want to do. She's still 32, so that's not too old to have children. So,
right. That's true.
Yeah, I don't, and I know. I guess for folks that are athletes, that kind of puts you on a different schedule too, in terms of when you have a 9-month window where you don't have to compete and all that as well. That can kind of make it more of a challenging thing as well.
Yeah, especially from female standpoint. Yeah. Interesting. Stay tuned, I guess.
Absolutely. Let's see.
Oh, one more thing, because what I've always thought about those two young ladies is that, and it was mentioned in the readings today briefly, is that just alone they're smart. They're smart. They understand the strategy of the game just as good or probably better than anybody in the history of the sport. But they are athletes, meaning that he could have had the ambition to apply them to just about any sport. You know, really. I mean, they look like basketball players. You know, Serena looks like almost a bodybuilder, so to speak. You know, whatever. I mean, they're athletic, and that to me, as well as very, very smart about the sport, and that to me is I can almost sense the envy that their white competitors have when they show up for the match. They already, most of their opponents already know they're gonna lose. You know, from that standpoint. You know, and correct me if I'm wrong, there have not been that type of combination in the history of that sport. You know, before those two ladies got maybe Althea Gibson. You know, also, but as far as a combination of knowing the game, and very athletic, whereas they could also play other sports. I mean, just to look at both of them, and they look athletic. You know, from how they look, you know, externally. You know, and so that to me brings up a lot of envy. From their opponents, especially the white ones.
I said to my wife about the two ladies. I said if they had husbands, you know, black husbands, you know, like a brother that looked like Terry Crews. I wonder how quick white men or even white women would start calling them, you know, saying that they're manly looking and making jokes if they had black husbands that look like they could just go off on you and just tear your face off on live TV. But, you know, I can have my hopes up.
I think, yeah, we can chat on that in after the second audio segment as well, because I think not just the comments from this week, but I think there's been a long history of that. Anyway, it might be intensified if they were married or had children, particularly to a black male. But there certainly has been a long record of that, even before we got to this week. But yeah, folks have other comments that they want to get in, just jot it down. We should have ample time. Make sure that we can kind of give a synopsis of what we got from the book, final thoughts or impressions folks will be leaving with as we wrap it up. Last audio segment to finish off Mr. Richard Williams, Black and White, The Way I See It. If you weren't able to call in yet, no worries. Make a note so you don't forget, and we'll have ample time to share once this segment concludes. We'll go ahead and get the final segment, Mr. Richard Williams, Black and White, The Way I See It. Context of White Supremacy. We should be picking up on chapter 24. Chapter 24. In the day when I cried, thou answered me and strengthened me with strength in my soul. Psalm chapter 138, verse 3. The loss of a child is every parent's nightmare. Our daughter, Yetunde Price, was 31 years old, the eldest of our 5 children, and mother to 3 children of her own when she was murdered on the streets of Compton in 2003. She was shot in the head by a Crips gang member while riding in a car driven by her boyfriend. Yetunde was a great daughter who would have done great things in her life had she been able to live it. Her death was a major blow to us. Yetunde was a unique individual. When she wanted to do something, she'd stand behind me and say in her nice, sweet, lovely little way, "Daddy, may I please do this? May I please do that?" I couldn't help but say yes. Yetunde was just a terrific human being, easy to understand, ambitious, and always involved with the family. She helped manage Venus and Serena. She knew how to give her opinion and take care of things when Venus and Serena turned professional. Yetunde paid bills, made sure the insurance on the cars was always up to date, and was always a major help. Yet she wanted to live her own life and pursue her own dreams. When I moved the family to Florida, Yetunde decided not to come. She wanted to stay in California, and, bless her soul, that's where she's buried. After all the time we spent in Compton and all the contact I had with gangs, I ended up having a strong relationship within them. Once our enemies, they became our protectors and even guarded Venus and Serena on the very courts from which they had once tried to eject us. I became a father figure of sorts to some and tried my best to get them out of the gang life. I was rarely successful, but it created some honest dialogue. When I went to California after the shooting, I didn't go directly to see Yetunde's body. I went to see the gang leaders because I wanted to know exactly what had happened. They said Yetunde's shooting was a mistake. "Mr. Williams, we're sorry. We didn't mean to shoot your daughter." They shared with me what had happened. I came to believe what they told me was true. She was shot by accident. They were after the guy she was with. The killers thought she was driving the car, so they shot through the passenger side. The bullet went in the back of her head and out the front. Her face was shattered. When we gathered in California, I said to her mother, "I don't think you want to see your daughter right now." "Oh, yes, I do. I want to see my daughter," she insisted. It was devastating. She got so weak she almost fainted. Of all the children, I think Serena was the one most bothered by Yetunde's death. I was in Atlanta, Georgia in the car when she called me. I could tell by her voice that something major was wrong. She had never sounded like that before. I said, "Serena, whatever it is that's wrong, please don't tell me. I'm driving the car and I'm in Georgia. Let me get turned around. I have a thing about death. If it happens, it's over. There's nothing more to be done." Once in the early days of the girl's success, before we had the kind of security necessary to protect us, the phone rang and some vicious fool told Oracene that Venus and Serena were dead. They had been killed in a car crash. Of course, Oracene tried frantically to get in touch with them. I went to my desk and began to work. If it was true, there was nothing to be done. I was headed back to my hotel after Serena's call when I heard on the news that Yetunde had been killed. I wanted to call Serena back, but I did not. I just drove, visualizing Yetunde and feeling the pain. It's a terrible thing to lose a child. No one can understand what you go through unless he or she has been through it. There are a lot of groups out there to help parents who lose a child. I never went. I went to my family, and we all just talked together and cried together and did the best we could. It was a tough time. We hoped we had done the best job possible for Yetunde. It would have been so easy to start questioning what we had done. Why was she with this person? Why was she in that atmosphere? What could we have done that would have prevented this? The citizens of Compton brought little dolls and stuffed animals and a cross to the site where Yetunde died. I picked them all up and brought them home. They brought so much sorrow to me that I took the cross and the dolls and the stuffed animals and burnt them all. I couldn't stand the constant reminders of the sadness. I couldn't bear so many people telling me, "I'm so sorry for you." For a long time, I told people, whatever you do, don't bring up my daughter's name or anything about her being killed. Parents reach a point in life where nothing can really hurt us except through our children. I could live with all that had happened to me, all the beatings, all the pain of growing up in a racist America. I could handle waking up in the middle of the night with all the angry memories in my head, but I could do nothing to stop this pain. I remember Serena won one tennis tournament and said, "This is for Yetunde." Venus would also always talk about how wonderful she was. They had the same type of love for Yetunde that they had for each other. Yetunde had a way of bringing the family members closer and making our lives better. She could express herself so uniquely that we all felt that we were the closest one to her. The New York Times sent a reporter to cover the trial of the gang member accused of the shooting. He was very nice to me. He went to court all the time, sat through all the trials. After 2 mistrials, the accused killer pleaded no contest and was sent to jail. After the sentencing, the reporter called me. "Mr. Williams, what do you think? Do you think it's okay?" I couldn't say I believed the guy sentenced wasn't the guy who did it. The gang was very sure of that, and they told me so. They delivered someone who was going to pay. The police accepted it. The courts accepted it. Whatever had been done, it was over. If the guy went to jail or the electric chair, it wasn't going to change a thing. For me, it was over. I had no more pain left. I had no more animosity. It was over and it was done. Yetunde's life had been fulfilled no matter how young she was. She was with God now, and I could live with that because I had to, despite the pain. For whosoever is born of God overcometh the world, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, our faith. 1 John chapter 5, verse 4. Chapter 25. The roar of the crowd at Wimbledon Stadium as Serena won the finals match pulled me back from my thoughts of the past. The cheers pulled me back from Shreveport, back from the cotton fields where my mother toiled in near slavery, back from the fear and danger I had lived with every day as a child. It pulled me back 70 years. I was standing at the end of my journey. What is it like when your plans succeed? There is pride beyond measure. Could I count my blessings? There were so many. I was almost overcome. Watching Serena receive the winner's trophy, tears coursed freely down my cheeks, and I didn't care who saw them. Being a champion starts with a dream and the dedication and commitment to make that dream come true. A champion is a dream catcher. She catches her dreams by any means necessary and follows it through. There are people who will support and believe in her. There are people who will discourage and criticize her. Either way, she has the strength to sustain her battle. A champion is a true warrior, one so driven by determination that she will stop at nothing to make it to the top. I had seen my daughter's eyes fill with fury as they eyed opponents, anticipating war. A champion is confident she will be the victor. She is completely focused on the prize, and no matter how tough the challenge, she will rise to it. She rises to every occasion with the grace and poise of a queen. What had I taught my children? That a true champion treasures her unique gift, whatever it is that has been bestowed upon her by God. She treasures her hard work and sacrifice. A champion does not understand the concept of being mediocre or second best. She treasures life and lives it abundantly to the fullest, aware that life is a precious gift and victory is sweet beyond measure. Had I succeeded? Had I made up for my father's lack of love and protection for me by loving and protecting my own family? I hoped so. Had I justified all the work and effort in the plan I wrote so many years ago? 3 generations told me I had. When Serena sprinted up to the family box and I held her in my arms, I could feel the powerful current of strength and purpose and dignity that flowed from my beloved mother through my dedicated former wife to my amazing daughters. I thank Jehovah for letting me get this far, Serena said as she held the winner's trophy high. I almost didn't make it. A few years ago, I was in the hospital, but now I'm here again, and it's so worth it, and I'm so happy. I never dreamt of being here again, being so down, but never give up, and you can continue. Thank you guys in the box over there. Daddy, Mama, Sasha, Esther. I put my hand on Venus's back next to me, and I felt her laugh and smile when the presenter congratulated Serena on how she had as many Wimbledon trophies as Venus did. Serena smiled broadly. I've always wanted everything that Venus had. The scene below wavered for a moment through my tears. I couldn't see through the lens of my camera. I heard the voices of my daughters all around me, and our family and friends, and the crowd around them, and I felt the fullness of my life. In a special way, I felt real gratitude for all I had. I do not know what prompted it. The girls' tennis victories had always brought out such complex emotions in me that I often hated to watch them play, but that day I found a peace and happiness I had known only a few times before in my life. What greater value could there be than in finding peace if you've never had it? We search for so many things. When you have peace, you have a serenity about yourself. You're happy with what you do, what you say, the way you look, the way you conduct yourself. You don't have to have the best or the most expensive things. Whatever you have is exactly what you want. I shook my head and wiped my eyes. It was amazing. All the things I went through, and I was still alive. My life could have ended at any time. There were a lot of close calls. Still, for all the wounds, I could walk on my own. For all the insults, I could breathe on my own. I could sit on my tractor on my land and cut my grass as I wished, and no man could tell me different. This was peace, and on this day I could have lain down and died and been happy. Sitting there, I saw things as I had never seen them before. 70 years. It was a big life. I felt my heart beat stronger and my chest expand, and I wanted to thank all the white people for making me such a strong person. If it wasn't for the life they made me live, I wouldn't have become so tough. I wanted to thank the black people too for what they had taught me and how they had helped, and even for those who had hurt me. I wanted to thank every person, black and white, for all that they had added to my life. I was the product of each and every experience. I am 70 years old now, and I have a new wife and a new son. Most everyone I know has asked me if I'm going to make him a tennis player like Venus and Serena. They want to know if I plan to raise the greatest male tennis player who ever lived. They ask me if I can do it again. I tell them that is a foolish goal. What do I need with another tennis player? But I am old and crafty and just settling in to write my new plan, complete with directions if I don't get to finish it. He's going to be a billionaire. I still dream big.
And that is that. All done. Richard Williams, Black and White, The Way I See It. Folks have comments they would like to get in. The number again, 760-569-7676. The code is 564-943#. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. All of the folks who dialed in with a hand up, line should be open. If you have things you would like to share, feel free to chime in. Comments, thoughts?
Oh, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say I love that ending. Just really glad to hear that even in his old age, he still made plans and made plans even more so to be a part of his son's life. And even if he can't be there because of his old age, he made a plan so his son could understand what his thoughts were in life. And I think that's good.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay, briefly on the death of the older daughter. One thing that I dislike about the media is that no matter what the truth is, we end up getting their spin on whatever they thought happened at that time and the way that they skillfully use words. They may not be all out telling lies, but it's leading you towards a conclusion that it's probably not true. Because I can remember when that incident happened and the way that the media had reported on it, it made one believe that that was her. She was with her boyfriend, it wasn't her husband, and that he was probably, not the best person in the world that she could have been associated with. But then, where he was the target, then she ended up getting being the fall guy for something that he was involved in. And the area that they were in was not a, favorable area. So it just made the whole thing look, rather bleak. But it seemed like that Mr. Williams, corroborated some of the facts, and we probably never get to know the whole truth about it. But it's probably safe to believe that, she, no one deserves to die like that, and it was probably a situation where the wrong place at the wrong time. But the way he described it, is probably about the best way anyone can deal with the loss of a child. I had to go through that myself, and my son was found dead, and it was some mysterious circumstances, and then we were never able to get the truth, which there's a lot of, speculation. But like so many other cases, it was ruled a suicide, which, his mother, to this day, it's been several years now, will not accept that, and so she thinks that it was some foul play. But anyway, moving on, when Mr. Williams, brought up the part about thanking white people for the racism and the tough times that he endured, if we all looked at it that way, we would have to thank all the white people for oppressing us and terrorizing us through the years. I don't know if I agree with all that. It's better ways to learn lessons and to become better people than to have to endure racism, mistreatment, oppression, terrorism. I don't buy that. And throwing the black people in there too, if you're going to say that, I think you should just let that stand on what it's standing on. But see, for some reason, it just seems to me there's so much of an influence, of the ghostwriter, because it all has to equal out, in this text, which it doesn't equal out. And I don't see where any recognition should be given to white people for mistreating every non-white person on the face of the earth, and all the atrocities and all the killing and just devious, evil things that's been done. Giving them credit for what? That kind of burns, the old expression, burns my grits, so to speak. But, and that part about, last thing I'll say is, I read in an article where he's 72 now, and the little boy is 2 years old. And he did say in the article that he plans for his son to be a billionaire. He didn't want him to be a tennis star because they could only make millions. And he wanted his son to be a billionaire. And he's looking into buying gold mines at this time. So he plans to steer him in the direction of gold mining. So I'll mute my line on that. Thanks.
Any of our other listeners have thoughts that they wanted to share, second audio segment and or concluding thoughts about the text?
I gotta agree with previous caller on my take on the death of the oldest child. I can't imagine losing any of my children, or me being able to be as calm as Richard was, especially if I knew what group is responsible. Now, he obviously had some real close ties to some of these leaders where he can go directly to the leader and find out who is who, what is what. But what, I just can't imagine once I find the name, I can't imagine this guy coming to trial. I can't even imagine him making it to trial. I can imagine me being in the same place with him, going on trial, having my hands around his neck personally, removing him from the earth. It's amazing to me how he can be as calm as he was, or shall I say, removed as he was, as much as this person was an angry person. It's from what we are hearing or reading. He's quick to go up against black folk. But, but when somebody's dead, it's a totally different thought process. So, that's something to really contemplate and think on. I mean, he had some kind of agreement with these guys. He would bring this guy to justice or turn himself in, or maybe he even paid a ransom, as far as we know. He could have paid a ransom. His only option was to have the safety of a prison. I don't know. Things can happen out there. But I just find that interesting there. How he handled that situation, or how he went about handling it. But it's still a sad situation. And really, this is my first time hearing about it, so I'm not sure if I was in the United States during that time when it happened. So I'm really wondering, I got to do some study on her death, what when it came down, well, how come I never really heard about this? Because when you're not in the United States, you don't really hear the news like that, you know. So I just got to wonder what I was doing at that time. But yeah, I find it also interesting that he wants his son to be a step above his daughters and be a billionaire and then go into certain parts of the business world, and him planning his future. And I also wonder about why he separated from his other wife. Was it that she couldn't really get over their daughter's death, and he left? Was that the main split, or is there some lingering blame for putting them in that situation, having them in that predicament when they didn't have to be in that kind of predicament to begin with? But those are just my thoughts, and because nobody wants to put their children in dangerous situations when they don't have to be in dangerous situations. But you can't do everything. You still got like he says himself. All of a sudden, he's wondering, why would she be in the area hanging out with that type of person? Why would she be in that area? Like, you moved them to that area. This is all they knew. If you didn't move them to that area, they'd probably be someplace else, thinking differently. But if they're in that area and they're thinking like that, then they're gonna roll with whatever person's in that area. And we don't know what her mindset was, and we don't know what the other member's mindset was that shot at the car. Obviously, we have these problems in these areas. People just like to shoot to make a name for themselves. So,
absolutely. I just make sure we get the details. Yetunde Price, she was murdered in 2003. Oracine and Mr. Williams, they divorced in 2002. So it looks like their divorce wouldn't have had anything to do with the death of Yetunde Price. He, during the segments we read from last week, he just touched on the strain of by 2002, they were international stars. They were huge. They had already won a lot. Venus and Serena had won a lot by then. So he just said it was more than they had planned for in terms of dealing with everything that come, all the attention and being in the spotlight that came with all the success and money that they got, and they just didn't have the wisdom to handle it well. It's kind of what he laid out last week. I'm sure there are more details to it than that, but it looks like just chronologically, it definitely did not have anything to do with Yetunde Price's murder.
Well, that eases my mind. I'm glad that wasn't the reason. Sad that it didn't. That there was other reasons, but that they ended up separate anyway. But I'm glad that wasn't the reason. That would be really, really, to me, really tragic. And blaming each other instead of blaming the white man for creating the atmosphere in the first place. But still, she still had to end up dead by the hands of both a black person looking for another black person, I'm assuming, over mainly products that sell themselves. It's just, how stupid can we be?
Victims, white people have done a good job. I know Gary Null's
Good
film
job.
is coming out. I take the position. I don't say that we're stupid or dumb. That's a part of being a victim. White people have done a very good job with their system, keeping us confused and poisoned and just functioning in a very non-constructive manner. But yeah, that Gary Null film.
Hey, bro.
Hang on one second.
You can
Hang
say
on one second. Hang on one second. That Gary Null film is very important, I think, for giving greater insight on, why those environments look like that, and you end up having shooting incidents like that. But at any rate, I thought it was also important. To make sure I don't miss anybody else who had questions that they wanted to get in as well. But I also, just with the whole shooting incident that happened, even this happened in 2003, even when I've heard Mr. Williams and other Serena Venus, when I've heard them talking about all this, the impact you can tell that it still has. And I mean, I would expect that to be something that, you just kind of roll the rest of your life. You're just trying to deal with and process and that sort of thing. I think somebody even asked them, like, have you gotten over it? And he was like, I don't know that you get over something like that. You just try to manage it the best you can moving forward, which somber but accurate, I think. I think even Mr. Demery Ford was attesting to that as well. Any other folks on the line we haven't heard from? Do you all have commentary you wanted to get in as well? Anybody else? All the folks who dialed in with a hand up. Anything else stand out from second audio segment or overall thoughts now that we have completed the book?
I like to say one other thing about the breakup. Like I said before, you don't know if it's true or not. We got to go on is media accounts of the incidents, but like you said, it's pretty definite that it wasn't the death of the child the reason why Mr. Williams and Orsine divorced, but the media was reporting that he was dedicating quite a bit of time, in his daughters' lives. They were reporting that he was having them up 5:30 in the morning, practicing constantly, and away from home, and not spending the quality time that he should have with his wife, and that attributed to the separation. And we don't know how much of that is true, but it seems reasonable, but that's just another media account of what happened. But recently, or I don't know how recent it was, but it was reported that Serena sold her mansion to her mother for $10. So, so I don't think any of them are at a big loss for each other's company. They could probably find something to do with all the resources that they have. I'll mute my line.
Reminded me of Dr. Tommy Curry's last visit on the program when he was talking about black people across the board, across the world, experience violence, right, in all forms, however it is manifested. But he was asserting that frequently a lot of that violence is primarily focused on black males, and sometimes where black females are being attacked, it was because of violence that was intended for a black male. When he was on the program, he was talking about Ayanna Stanley Jones, how her death, she wasn't the target. They were coming for a black male in her house. That was the person that they were coming for, and she ended up being shot and killed. This would be another example where they were shooting to get her black male boyfriend and ended up killing her. It certainly does not make me feel any better. And even, I guess, when he went and had his conversation with these gang members and they said, oh, it was an accident, we were trying, that would not make me feel any better either. That would not, help me soothe my angst and pain about losing my child. The fact that, this was an accident, our bad.
Exactly.
Just nonsense all the way through.
Exactly.
But shout out to Dr. Tommy Curry. Always good to have him on the program. Also, I thought with Mr. Demery, and that could have been the ghostwriter as well. I think that's pretty standard in a lot of the texts that we've read that are intended for mass consumption, i.e. that there's supposed to be a sizable white audience that's supposed to be reading the text as well, where it can't be left where you're thinking like, wow, white people are really messed up. Look what they did. Like, especially when you get like a big heaping helping of consistent white pathology coming from lots of the white people that are in the book or whatever the material is. There's got to be some way to soften that blow at the end so that you don't think that all white people are like that and that we're not ending on a nasty note as it relates to white people. And I thought that was could have been at play with what we got at the end about him thanking everybody who contributed to him being the person that he is, because he's just a product of his experiences and what white people did to him and what have you. I did kind of something that was just kind of quick going by when he said when he wakes up at night with fits of anger. If folks remember that part. And I thought that was fascinating. Like to be, I mean, you're Richard Williams. Your daughters are known around the world. Your daughter is the #1 ranked tennis player in the world and has been repeatedly. She's won more U.S. Open championships than anybody. Been Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue and blah, 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 and all the things that they've done. And you're waking up at night with night terrors as a result of the things that white people have done to you. I mean, that is profound. With regards to the impact that racism, white supremacy has on us and is still having, because I mean, he's having that. And then just this week, what happened with Serena Williams and all the other incidents that have gone on in between. It reminded me of that report when they went to Nigeria, Venus and Serena, to do some sort of tennis camp, whatever. And they were talking to them about their toughest obstacle. And they said that their toughest opponent has been racism. And they talked about having been called nigger on the way to the courts and all the other things that they've had to deal with being black female champions. And that didn't get reported. Like, it was widely talked about. It was in the BBC. It was in the LA Times. It was in USA Today. When they made this trip to Nigeria, I think this was in 2012, right after they won the Olympics, gold medal in Olympics. But they left that part out. Like, you had to get the Nigerian press to see that, they made this comment on racism. Nobody else thought that was important enough to include. Getting back, I think, to Mr. Demery's point and some of the other folks' point about the role that the media have in shaping how we think about events that, come to our attention. Anything else stand out? Concluding thoughts or major themes that popped out? I know I said I thought this might be a great book for children to read, particularly black females, because I think he has so many great things to say about females throughout the book. His mom, his grandmother, his daughters, his ex-wife. Just seems like it would be something that might plant some really good seeds for young black female readers. Do folks have thoughts on that?
I thought another thing that was interesting was, I think Mr. Fuller, had mentioned that, when a black person dies, they bring flowers out and little dolls and stuffed animals and a cross at the site where the person is dead. You know, I thought it was interesting that Mr. Williams again just took all that up and then took it somewhere and burned it. You know, it's kind of symbolic of a closure, because why would you want to remember something like that? You know, anything of remembrance, when you go by that particular place or you think about it, all those little items is just going to remind you of that again. So I think that, you know, to what you just said, when he said earlier that he thought that women had more faith than men and that he would just listen to women, and the women were very significant in his life. And I think the book stayed true to that. And it did show that if you count his mother, his sisters, his wife, his children, it all attests to the fact that, well, you know, he was surrounded by women. I mean, he had no other choice, you know, but that had a lot of significance in his life, and I think it had some bearing on how he ended up in the long run. His feeling of wanting to protect them and doing things selfishly for his sisters, his mom, and his family, you know, attributed to the strength and his success. I'll mute my line.
Yeah, agree.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I think it would be a good book for males to read, black males to read. I'm sure black it would be a good book for black women because of the, you know, he is the father of the two famous women. But I think it would be a real good book for black males to read so they can see how codified this black male was to his family, to bringing them to a position of success. And as a protector, as much as he could be a protector, for them against that white supremacy. I think it would be real good for black males, because I think that contributed to the black female's success, seeing their father stand up for them. You know, and that's probably why they, you know, maybe haven't found another black male to be with, because they haven't found that black male that's as mature as their father. That's a doggone high. They're gonna have some real high what they call it standards for the male that's going to be coming into their life, and maybe the only male they can see has got a higher standard is the white man. Sad, but hey, go ahead, bro.
I agree with the recommendations that have prior to me speaking about the book. Also, I would also include, in a sense, required reading for all of the people who are involved with that black child that is involved with athletics. A lot of the things that he was saying, in my opinion, is right on the money, as far as the idea of hoovering over a child, forcing a child, putting pressure on a child, and being that he is very popular, as well as his daughters are very popular, because a lot of time, somebody like me, it really doesn't add up to anything when I may come up with some suggestions or whatnot, but a lot of times people will listen to somebody who is known for something or another like himself and his daughters. And some of the things that he was saying through the course of the book as far as interaction with himself and his daughters when it came to the sport itself, even the preparation part of what he was the different lessons that he was attempting to teach them on some things that they would become involved with later on in life, such as the importance of how to manage money, that sort of thing is vital. Some of our children do show that they have talent in the playing of these sports, basketball, football, baseball, what have you, which that there's some attention that needs to be done to that, and there's a level of dedication that one has to apply. But as a method, there's a correct method and there's an incorrect method. And I think for the most part, what I was hearing from him, that he was applying what I think is correct methods. And so that's something that all of these people, of course, parents, but also a lot of other people involved with a child, the little league coach needs to be reading some of this stuff. The high school coach, as far as that's concerned. So by the time they get to the more serious levels, such as college and even professional level, that particular non-white black person / athlete would be much more mature than what I have been witnessing over the course of about 30 years, as far as that's concerned. I mean, a lot of things he was saying in that book was right on the money, with dealing with someone. It's not so much about athletics. Any subject matter is all about being successful, and ultimately the idea of replacing the system of racism with the system of justice is the ultimate victory, of course. But some of the things that he was saying involving directly with his two children who are victims of racism and white supremacy, I think it should be read by a lot of people dealing with kids who are athletes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was really pleased. One of our listeners, attempted parent, she had her young son listening to the book, and apparently she said he really enjoyed it. He wanted to get a copy of the book. I was stunned but pleasantly surprised. And I think this is a book that if you have a child that's 12, 13, 14, they could probably read this book. It doesn't have a lot of, big words. I don't think they would have to sit down with a dictionary to get through it. Like if you have little projects, like when your children have time off from school just to kind of keep their mental faculties sharp and operational during a break, like when they're out for what they call winter break and all that other stuff, you could have them read this because it's just not that. A lot of it is stories, really. And I think for a lot of children, I think they tend to be more into books that have stories, that have narratives. Him facing down the Klan and what happened at Indian Wells and a lot of this stuff. The pregnancy that he starts the book off with when his mother is pregnant with him and her whole ordeal getting to the hospital. I think that would be something that I think a lot of younger readers would get into because it's not just bulky or academic jargon. It's stories about things that black people experienced as it relates to racism, but particularly I think for the way that the reverence that he has for black females and talking explicitly about not wanting his daughters to think that being a female was any sort of liability. He wanted them to be strong. He wanted them to think really the exact opposite, because you are a female, that you are stronger and that you're going to be able to do things that males just can't do. That I think that would be phenomenal. And I think, as the callers are saying, males benefit from reading this book as well. Seeing that appreciation for black females, I mean, hey, outstanding. And then even having that play out, hearing him talk about how important it was for him to be in the delivery room and with his wife during the whole time when she was pregnant, being with her every step of the way. I think that is phenomenal as well. So I would highly encourage younger children, black children, to read this book. I think I've been saying the whole time through, great illustration of black self-respect, in my view. Before we get to the conclusion, I did want to get in the acknowledgments from the book in case that offers anything of note for folks listening in. It's quick. He writes, people have been asking me for many years when I was finally going to write my book. It took the right combination of time and people to accomplish the task. Telling my story would not have been possible without Bert Davis, racist suspect, my great writer who fashioned a narrative out of my story and helped me find my true voice of strength and passion. He justified every trust I placed in him, and I am proud to be his friend and partner. Shavoita Lassane, my son, who brought us all together and tirelessly kept this project alive when others would have faltered. He deserves great credit. Robert Gottlieb, my agent, who brought to the project the enormous resources of Trident Media Group and his personal wisdom, which never fails. Malika Adero, my great senior editor and vice president at Atria Books, whose optimism, skill, and excitement from the very beginning powered us through to the end. Venus and Serena, my daughters, who inspire me and are the reason for it all. My pride in them is constant. My love for them is endless. Julia Metcalf Williams, my mother, my hero. Lakeisha Williams, my wife, who encouraged me from the beginning. Todd Hunter, associate editor at Atria, who kept us all organized. Mark Gottlieb of Trident Media Group, who helped at every turn. Aaron Milchin, my friend who taught me so much. Elise and Morton Petcher for their fine photographs. Larry Bailey, Reginald Sessions, Jan Morrison, Nancy Lyon, Carlos Fleming, Jill Smoller, Robert D. Funderburg, Commissioner Wilson, Adla Donastorg, Christina Broadwell, Desiree Barber, Alexandra Davis, Jordan Davis, Sharon Davis, Julie Friend, Linda Ballcourt, and Sophia Gottlieb, and the pioneers like Oprah Winfrey, Whoopi Goldberg, Ellen DeGeneres, and Barack and Michelle Obama, among a multitude too vast to name. Those are the acknowledgments. I don't tend to think of racist suspect Ellen DeGeneres as a pioneer, whatever that means, but that's it. Anything else folks wanted to get out? We have about 6 minutes left before we wrap up. Anything else folks wanted to get in? Everybody's grand?
Can I be heard?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
It's, then again, I think that's attributed to the ghostwriter again, because Ellen DeGeneres would be considered a pioneer when you think about the LBGT. She happened to graduate from the same high school that I graduated from. So some of the people that were behind me knew of her, and they don't know much about her life, but her graduating class, she had them all on her show, and she is a so-called anti-sexual, or whatever the term is these days that people are using. And think about Richard Williams saying that about her. Everything about his life does not even point towards him being considerate of that type of thing, but it's politically correct at this time to mention the LBGT and to consider them as pioneers on some type of a progressive type movement. I just attribute that to the ghostwriter.
Right on. He has great photos in the book as well, where you can see a young Serena, young Venus, some of the signs that he had around the house. You can see his mom, Julia Metcalf Williams. It's worth it if you get actual copy of the book to see them, the evolution over the years and what they were doing, what they looked like, and what have you. Yeah, I'm glad we were able to take the time to read, particularly, as I said, with what went down this week. In fact, I would even say the audio clip that we started with, the exchange that was on Reverend Al Sharpton's program, where Serena, they had the audio footage where you heard her directly say that she thought the comments from this racist suspect in Russia, she thought the comments were sexist and racist. Totally unacceptable. And they had some white woman on the panel saying, "Oh, I didn't think it was racist at all. Like, I don't know about that. It's not acceptable, but racist. I mean, wait a minute, man. We can't just be going around calling everything racist." Just standard operating procedure. Obfuscate, move away. We do not want non-white people have an accurate understanding of racism, white supremacy. And I thought the black male, she interrupted him. I thought he was doing a really good job in trying to assert that is something that happens all the time, where black females are masculinized. They are not thought of as women or feminine, that this is a regular method of white people practicing racism, white supremacy, and dehumanizing black females, that this has been pretty standard throughout their career, where they have faced these sort of tacky insults from white females and white males, and that this is a long-running tradition within the system of racism, white supremacy. If you remember Renisha McBride, she was referred to as it by convicted murderer Ted Wafer, and they did, in my opinion, the same thing, where she was portrayed as some not feminine person. She was portrayed as just some menace who could have huffed and bluffed and blown Mr. Wafer away. Anything else last minute before we conclude Mr. Williams' book? Anything else?
Gus, where would you put this book on your list of favorites?
List of what now?
Favorite books. Your favorite books. Where would you put Mr. Williams, Black and White, as I see it?
It is pretty good. I definitely enjoyed this book a lot more than many of the texts that I have read. I don't think it could crack the top 10 just because, and I do have books that were written by white people in the top 10, but the influence of the ghostwriter, like that's pulling it down a little bit from breaking into the top 10. And plus, just thinking about the books that I have in my top 10, like they tend to have lots and lots of great details, information, what have you. This book is very good, but I don't know if it would be a top 10, but it would definitely be pretty high up there in terms of books that just for enjoyment's sake, where I think you can learn quite a bit, gives you quite a bit of accurate information about racism, the things that he experienced as a child, his experience in Chicago, his experience at the car wash with Buddy in California. I think it just gives many different instances of accurate details about racism, white supremacy, black self-respect, showing black people standing up to racism, white supremacy, having high reverence for black females, just lots of things that I think make it outstanding. I don't think it would crack top 10, but it'd be pretty high up there. Probably, I'd say probably top 50 at this point. Might even be higher than that. I'd have to give it some thought. Not quite top 10, but definitely top 50 books that I've read. And definitely something that would shoot way up there. People from this point forward, if they ask me about books that younger people can read, this will probably be one of the first ones that I mention.
Well, I just want to say I got great insight on different people's thought process on the book and what they saw. It made me think a whole lot more in of his life, and his struggles. So I definitely liked participating in it.
Myself as well. I as well was great exchange of views. Good to hear from the folks who chimed in, shared their views as well on what they thought was important, what stood out for them in reading the book. Nathan McCall, if folks read Makes Me Want to Holler, he wrote an acknowledgement for this book as well. It's on the back of the jacket if you get the hard copy of the text. Anywho, all done. Moving forward, next week we will be doing Rebecca Skloot, Racist Suspect, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. That will be the new book starting next week. I thought it would be timely to read that text now with everything in the media about Ebola and racism and black people and healthcare. I thought it would be great to read that text and particularly to be critical in reading that text because a white woman authored it. And I'm not sure that people, when they typically read that book, think of the author as a racist and her making money, continuing to make money off of a dead black person who was exploited and taken advantage of by white people, white doctors specifically. But that'll be next week. Rebecca Skloot, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. New book starting next Friday. We will be here tomorrow, compensatory call-in, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, catching up on the news, what has gone down over the last 7 days. We had another shooting here in Washington State today at a school. Looks like the shooter was a non-white person, but racism is even in the middle of that story, where it was alleged that the shooter, one of his classmates, went to alert the school officials that he might be upset or he might be angry because he apparently had some sort of confrontation with another student about them making racist comments earlier this week. I've already seen that within the first 8 hours of this breaking and being a big thing, but we'll be able to discuss that tomorrow. We should be back. We'll have 2 programs coming up early next week as well. On Tuesday, we should have a guest joining us from South Africa, as well as Steve Silverman with Flex Your Rights to talk about the safest way to deal with police encounters. So we will be remaining busy as we wind down October. Hopefully folks are staying safe for the autumn season. Thanks again for everybody who tuned in. I hope it was a constructive investment of your Friday evening. Invest if you think the program is constructive. Racism-notes.blogspot.com. gmail.com. Let me know if you get confused, if you need help finding something in the archives or have suggestions, just need to gripe. The email is untiljustice@gmail.com. The Twitter @untiljustice. Creator, it has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. Black self-respect at all times. Black self-respect at all times. Cows signing out. Thanks everyone for staying in, participating in the program. Remain safe, and we will speak in about 24 hours. See you soon.
I'm a victim, brother.
You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.